All right, today we're doing something a little different. We're basically putting companies on a financial treadmill. Yep, we're going to run a full-on stress test to see which ones are actually in good shape and which ones, well, might be about to collapse. And the best part? By the end of this, you'll have the exact tools to run this test yourself. Let's get started.
So let's kick things off with a huge question. I want you to forget about bad ideas or tough competition or even terrible marketing for just a second. What do you think is the single biggest silent killer of businesses out there? I'm talking everything from tiny startups to massive corporations.
You know, the answer is shockingly simple. They just run out of cash. It's crazy, right? A company can look amazing on paper. I mean, tons of orders, happy customers, the works. But if it can't pay its suppliers or its employees or its bills right now, it is in deep, deep trouble. And that fundamental ability to pay the bills is what this is all about.
There's a name for this, of course. It's called liquidity. Think of it as the financial lifeblood of any business. It's all about whether a company can handle its short-term debts without breaking a sweat. And to measure it, we use these really cool tools called liquidity ratios. These are basically our stress test equipment.
Okay, so our first test is the one you're going to see most often. It's called the current ratio, and it's our big picture general health check of a company's financial situation.
So here's how it works. The formula is pretty straightforward. It just compares a company's current assets, that's things like cash and inventory, basically anything it expects to turn into cash within a year, to its current liabilities, which is all the debt it has to pay back in that same year.
Let's use a quick example. So say this company has 10 lakh in current assets and 5 lakh in current liabilities. The math here is really easy, right? It's just assets divided by liabilities.
And that gives us a result of 2.0. So what does that actually mean? Well, it means for every single rupee of debt the company owes this year, it has 2 rupees in assets ready to cover it. A 2-to-1 ratio like this, that's traditionally seen as a very healthy sign. So looking good, the company is past the first test.
But hang on a second. What if a huge chunk of those current assets is just a warehouse full of stuff that's actually kind of hard to sell? This is where our first test has a little bit of a weak spot, and it's exactly why we need to get stricter.
And that brings us to test number 2, the quick ratio. It's also called the acid test ratio. I just love that name because it's a much tougher, more realistic test of a company's financial grit. This is the reality check.
Now, the key change here is what we take out of the equation. We start with those same current assets, but this time we subtract the things that aren't so easy to turn into cash, like that inventory we were just talking about, and any prepaid expenses. We're left with only the quick assets.
So let's use our numbers again. Let's say out of that 10 lakh in assets, 4 lakh of it is inventory and 1 lakh is prepaid expenses. We just pull those out. That leaves us with 5 lakh in quick assets to cover the same 5 lakh in liabilities.
And what does that give us? A ratio of 1.0, perfect balance. This means the company has exactly 1 rupee of easily convertible assets for every 1 rupee of short-term debt, so it can pay its bills without having to sell a single thing from its inventory. A 1-to-1 ratio here is considered solid. Test 2 passed.
Okay, that's definitely a clearer picture. But what if things get really bad? I'm talking about a true financial emergency where you need cash to pay your debts, not in a few weeks, but like tomorrow. This brings us to our final and by far the most intense stress test.
Yep, this is the emergency drill, the cash ratio. This test doesn't care about what you might be able to sell. Nope, it cares about one thing and one thing only, the cold, hard cash you have right now.
Just look how simple and honestly how brutal this formula is. It's just cash and marketable securities, things you can turn into cash almost instantly, divided by your current liabilities. There is absolutely nowhere to hide with this one. It's all about whether a company can survive a sudden crisis.
Let's run the numbers one last time. So, our company has 1.5 lakh in the bank and another 50,000 in marketable securities. That's a grand total of 2 lakh in emergency funds against that same 5 lakh in liabilities.
So the final ratio is 0.4. What this tells us is that the company can immediately cover 40% of its short-term debts with the cash it has on hand, right now, today. For a startup that's just burning through cash to grow, a number like this is absolutely crucial. It becomes a pure survival metric.
So there you have it. The stress test is complete. But here's the thing. Just like when you go to the doctor,
No single test gives you the full diagnosis, right? The real power comes when you look at all three of these results together.
This table really lays it all out perfectly. The current ratio, that's your optimistic, big-picture view. The quick ratio gives you a serious reality check by pulling out that slow-moving inventory. And finally, the cash ratio, that shows you what would happen in a true worst-case scenario. Each one tells a different but equally crucial part of the company's financial story.
So, what's the bottom line here? It's simple. Liquidity is survival. These ratios are the tools you can use to measure that survival potential. Just remember to see them as a story, as a progression, from the general overview all the way down to the emergency drill. And never, ever rely on just one number. Context is everything.
So we've walked you through the framework for a real financial stress test. And that leaves one final question, and this one's for you. Whether it's your own business, the company you work for, or maybe a stock you're thinking of buying, now that you have the tools, how financially fit is the company you really care about?